my sense is that the market is being disintermediated. The market for mediocrity is being completely disintermediated. People know that they don't need to pay for an agency. They don't need to pay those $1,750 or $2,500 for somebody to come up with something that they can't measure. So they stopped doing that, which has hit the marketing agencies really badly and causing decimation in their ranks because they don't really know what to do with AI either.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Black Holes, the podcast that shines a light on the hidden challenges of scaling a business. Hosted by Alan Pentz, each episode explores the critical shifts entrepreneurs make as they grow beyond $1 million, $5 million, even $30 million, and move from brute force to sustainable professional growth. Stay with us as we uncover what it really takes to escape the black holes of business and scale with intention.
All right, we are back, and I've got Steve Wilkinson here, and he's a master business Steve's amazing. He's a guru of small business, living in Ireland. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Steve, and Good and Prosper is his company, but Steve, what do you say your background is?
As an investor and finance person who, in fact, I started off life as a linguist, and because I had to figure out a way to earn money as tender age of 24, I just got married. My wife asked me, "How do you intend to support us?" Which I thought was
I think
a
she
due
should have asked
diligence
that
question.
first before the marriage.
That was definitely pre-LOI level of due diligence. But I ended up working for an American investment bank. They moved me out to Germany because this was 1987. So I ended up figuring out how that world worked, fell in love with it, found I was quite good at reading balance sheets and understanding the stories behind numbers. I was then I was a chief investment strategist for a multifamily office, private wealth manager for many years before setting up my own investment business in 1998. Because I was desperate to run my own balance sheet, and my senior partner was only about 10 years older than I was, and I couldn't bear the thought of being number two for the next 40 years. So I left. I left and sort of muddled my way through. I had a very good .com crash phase because I'm a value investor at heart and by training. So I could see what was happening. I have a great interest in financial market history, so I recognized what was happening fairly quickly. It was at that time that Alexander Chancellor brought out his book, Devil Take the Hindmost. So I was reading, great book, and it was it was a fundamental book for me because it not only gave me a map to follow, because I read it when it first came out, I think in 1998, which was just as the .com boom was starting to take off. So I was reading it and watching it in real time, which was
that's
fascinating.
interesting.
But it also gave me a mental model for dealing with the aftermath, because one of the things that Chancellor wrote about was that I think he used the example of the number of railway lines that were being built and financed to go from London to Cambridge, which is about an hour's journey, probably 2 in those days, or 3, I don't know. But anyway, there were something like 5 or 6 railway lines, all being financed, all being built at the same time, all being financed through the stock market, through IPOs. And he said, there is one very good business to be had running people from London to Cambridge. There are not 5. So one of them is going to survive, and it's going to be probably the one that got in earliest, have the cheapest capital, the one that's already built the line and is running it and has got some customer experience, and the one with with management that has not been stupid with the money that it's taken in. And that gave me an extraordinarily good framework for looking at the .com bust and saying, okay, of the 100 internet businesses all wanting to sell pet food or something, who are the ones that fit to those criteria, who have built something worthwhile, who have built something that works, and who've got management that actually know what they're talking about, rather than some 24-year-old MBA who's just been given that 200 million through an IPO and doesn't know what to do with it. And it enabled me to whittle down amongst all the debris 3 or 4 businesses that you absolutely knew were were fitting exactly to that bill. So I had a very good time coming out of the crisis, because it was bargain time, and I have found that lesson to be invaluable, and basically that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. Wow. Now, so I want to talk about what's happening now with that, but we are on another subject today. So Steve, right before, started grilling me about my new tool, OwnerRx, and saying, like, what's really the market for this thing? Like, who's the ICP? And so he said, just to summarize, first of all, small business isn't a real market. It's basically like saying you're selling to humans. And with 32 million in the United States, I wouldn't disagree. And then I was saying, all right, I'm really trying to focus down on consultancy and agency owners. And he was saying there's like an apocalypse basically going on in that space, where, people are getting, the agencies are getting disintermediated largely, I think, would you say, because people are doing the marketing themselves, or how? That was the thing we were on right before. I said, we got to get this on the podcast.
See, I think, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off by saying this. Okay, so there are certain things that the experts tell small business owners to do. And again, I'm now being generic, okay, but sort of that, we all know, we've all got a sense of who we're talking about. And there is, my research over the past, 15, 20 years has shown me that there is a massive divide between the top 10% of performers in any particular industry silo and the rest. So at any one stage, I'm going to say half the small businesses defined as under 50 employees, or rather under 250 employees and under 50 million in revenue. Just call it that, for the SMB market. Yeah, that'll do but definitely with more than one employee. So let's say 5 to 50. The difference between the top 10% and the rest is factors. The performance is measured as EBIT as EBIT multiples is roughly 5 to 7 times the average of the rest. I would hazard a guess that in that bracket, and the top bottom are either not making any money or losing money, and that something like 65%, so let's say 2/3 of all the money made in any one of those industry silos is made by the top 10%, and the next 20% make the rest of it. So the top 35 are making all of it. And there's a disproportionate EBIT or value creation to the top. So having said that, the phrase that I coined as a result of sort of looking at those statistics was that the returns on competence to small businesses is nowhere as high as the returns to competence are nowhere as high as they are in the small business arena. So you don't have to do very much better than the average to start seeing outsized performance. And the 3 areas in which small businesses tend to be really bad are finance, marketing, and I'm going to call it focusing.
I would say that's number
highly
one.
Specific. It is number one. So what I've seen is that the small business market, such as it is, that there are lots and lots of people who recognize that they need to be good at that sort of stuff, those 3 things, but somehow can't. And particularly in marketing, which was one of the areas that you looked at, you said, who's disintermediating the agencies? Well, I think for a long time, and I suspect that time is over, you could be pretty mediocre as an agency and you could charge your clients, I don't know, $1,500 to $2,500 a month retainer. And you could say, we'll get you into SEO and we'll get you these clicks and we'll get you that. And because marketing is one of those things that just disappears down the plug hole for most small businesses in their working week, they were quite happy to pay somebody to do that, because at least they could say, well, we're doing marketing because look, we're paying $2,000 a month. I have no idea really what they do, but they're doing something. And I can talk about SEO, and what I've understood is that actually the point has now arrived where most of those businesses are looking, saying, I have no idea what my return on investment on that 2,000 is, or that retainer. I'm also paying another 500 for some sort of LinkedIn or Facebook ads or something, and the website, and none of it's really very good. So I may as well be flushing it down the toilet, basically, because I have no idea what specific return it's bringing to me. Now, I'm not going to diss on the marketing agencies because they do their best, but what I have discovered is that with the advent of AI and AI-driven tools that would help you to improve on your competence by being, for instance, more specific about your ideal target client, who you're focusing on, crafting a better profile. More and more of this stuff is there for free. If you can start practicing with prompts, you can even create content that is indistinguishable from something that a 24, 25-year-old grad from a middling university might be able to write. Claude can do better than that. It can produce good content. So now I've got no excuse. I can write the content, I can create the strategy, I can do the focus work, I can put the stuff out, and it's still not being done. So my sense is that the market is being disintermediated. The market for mediocrity is being completely disintermediated. People know that they don't need to pay for an agency. They don't need to pay those $1,750 or $2,500 for somebody to come up with something that they can't measure. So they stopped doing that, which has hit the marketing agencies really badly and causing decimation in their ranks, because they don't really know what to do with AI either. But even though most of the tools are now free and you could do it, because there's very little margin for most small businesses and they don't really understand the process of marketing or have the muscle memory to do it consistently, which is the only thing that matters in marketing, is to do it. If you're managing your funnel, you've got to be driving people in constantly, and maybe for 6 to 8 months you'll see nothing. But over time, you're building the one thing that really counts, which is consistency and a voice. And the one thing that most small businesses never get round to is doing consistent marketing. So they're getting rid of the agencies who are at least had the opportunity of making them be consistent. And they could replace it for free with ChatGPT or Claude or something, but they don't do that either. So marketing just isn't being done to any degree at all, I think. So it's very difficult to build a product that says, I'm going to help you through all of this. I'm going to create a tool. I'm going to make it really easy, because the only thing the service that I think really needs to be done and that has a chance of being offered is somebody who says, I'll do it. I will do it, but we'll do it in a measurable way. So that when you pay for it, either you're paying for results and then you know what the IRR is. Because I haven't met a single business owner yet who said, I'll pay $100,000 a year if I know it's going to work. If I'm getting 200,000 or 300,000 in business leads, I'll pay hundreds. I'll pay all of it for that if I know it's going to work. They just don't know that it's going to work, and their experience has told them it doesn't.
So similarly, I think exact same thing with finance, right? So I would say this is true across every part of the small business enterprise, that there isn't consistent effort and on anything. So like, say, finance, you might look at it with your accountant at the end of the year, decide to, throw in whatever tax money, and then you're like, oh, maybe I can take some money out. I don't know. But you're not looking at it month after month to consistently see where your numbers are and how to improve them. And again, it's like a 6 to 8 month process to get anything going, small incremental improvements to see real payoff. And I would say that's the same in operations with your team, everything, right?
So here's a picture for you, because the Tour de France has just finished. The bicycle race through France, and even though it's just one person that crosses the line first in the yellow jumper, there's always a team. And the difference between somebody doing it by themselves, which they could do, you can enter by yourself, there's no question for that. But then you'd have to do all your maintenance by yourself. You'd have to look after the bike. You'd have to do your logistics by yourself. And most importantly, on the road, you'd be all by yourself. The moment that you can start building a team, a CFO, a CMO, and a COO, and you concentrate on whatever it is that you do best, which is inventing or selling or managing or do whatever it is that you do best. Once you've got your own Peloton, your group of people, then suddenly the performance accelerates massively.
100%.
And I think that
and
the
Steve
same
doesn't
is
mean the bike
absolutely
in your basement. He means the actual word Peloton, which is a group of bikers together, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. The sort of the huddle that is supporting itself and is gaining incremental momentum through its own slipstream and the management of that slipstream. That's, for me, is fascinating.
So you just articulated the purpose of OwnerRx. That's it. So Steve's giving me crap saying I'm not focused enough, right? So that's what we need to explore here. I think it's awesome. I'd love to get the coaching on it. So what I would say is, look, I went back and looked at what do I do as a coach when I coach people. First, it was volunteer. Now I charge a certain number of people for it. And it's always just two things: prioritization and consistently working through every section of your business to do exactly what you just said. Now, to the extent that you can hire like the right person, that's great. Until you grow to a certain level, you kind of have to cobble it together with systems and the best people you can get and some outside help, right? But that's what I do as a coach. I'm like, okay, let's take a look at the business. You're probably focused on the wrong thing. Where's the big problems? Once we identify the problems, it's like consistent effort month after month to fix those problems. Once you fix one, you go to the next one. OwnerRx is all about that. It's just going, I'm a small business person. I don't, there's probably 3 or 4 different presenting problems. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not growing. It's chaotic. Some version of that, right? My team is a mess. So it's all about tailoring it to where you are, right? So if your team's a mess, there's a certain number of things you do. If leads aren't coming in, there's another thing you do. And it's premised on the idea that all small businesses, that at least when you hit gross margin, basically taste like chicken. And they're all kind of the same. And they all have the same problems. And you have the repeated behavior patterns of owners that tend to persist across certain sizes, right? And the problems tend to relate to each other. When you're $1 million business is different than when you're $5 million than when you're $10 million. And so the whole idea is that it's about creating a consistent set of, it's not 100% consistent on every exercise because not everybody needs to do everything, but having a consistent set across the 5 pillars of business that you build exactly what you just said, build your Peloton, build the systems, then build the people, and get to that next level. That's the idea. So pick away at it.
Again, I'll come to the primary cause of what Mike Michalowicz calls entrepreneurial poverty, which is this idea that the business owners are basically working 3 jobs all the time and doing that for ridiculous hours. And if they were to calculate what they take home consistently on an hourly basis, they'd be below the minimum wage, and they're not building wealth, and they're not building brand equity, and they're not building intrinsic value. They're just struggling. So given that that is true, and given that it's also true, in my experience, that while people say they want to do that or they would like to do that, they don't. Most don't, which is why there's such a huge gap between the top 10%, because they do, and the compounding of intrinsic value and market share and capture of value added in their industry vertical is so grotesquely skewed towards. There's no other industries except for Apple. Though I came across a statistic a couple of years ago which showed how much of the entire value added in the personal computing or whatever, personal digital phones, and how much value added Apple was capturing compared to or out of 100% of the global industry. And it's ludicrous. Apple's taking something 70%
of the
profits. All the money that's made in that space, measured as EBIT, is being taken by one firm and its massive domination of the supply chain and the market and its pricing power and all of those things. So, I think in small business, every single small business industry subsection, there are a handful of players that through their discipline, because they're good at finance, they're good at focus, and they're outstanding at marketing, that the compound effect of just those incremental changes, which allows them to build the team, which allows them to specialize, which allows them to start paying better salaries, which allows them to do better deals with the suppliers, which increases their focus. And I think there are three ways that businesses get paid. Every business gets paid, whether you're a single operator or whether you're a large business, doesn't matter. You get paid three different ways. You get paid in gross margin, which you can measure, the value of what you are assembling, putting together, and presenting to the customer as a finished product. The gap between what it costs you to do it and what the customer is prepared to pay for is the best possible measure of how valuable that is to the client. That's number one. Second way you get paid is through the compound effect of knowledge. So as you solve the problem, if you're specific about the problem, the more you solve it, the better you get at solving it, the more context you understand, the better you understand the processes and the needs of the customers for whom you are solving it. So your knowledge is compounding. And the third thing you get is reputation. That's the third currency in which you're paid. And all of those three flywheels are connected. They're all compound exponentially, and they all go into reverse exactly the same way. Although knowledge tends to go into reverse slowest. But margins can disappear, reputation can go up in a puff of smoke. But the point of business, as I see it, is to get yourself into that flywheel so that you're increasing margins, and your knowledge and your reputation are allowing you to expand those margins, which allow you to do more, to gather more, to pay more, to be more in flow. And for small businesses, any help they can get in just marginally increasing that competence, which is why the tools that you're creating are so valuable. And I've jumped on it. I love reading your stuff because you are effectively giving the option to, or you're giving away to small businesses to have marginal increases in their productivity that lead to those things. But they have to do it. And it's the doing. And I think there's a big market for people, for individuals who've, let's say, been fired from agencies or whose agencies have gone up in smoke, just to say, I'll do it. I will do it. I'll do it and I'll get paid by results. If I'm filling the funnel, I'll get paid 10, 15% of whatever new business comes out of it, because it's the doing. I think every small business owner knows that this is fundamentally true, that he should be doing it, but the difference between should be and doing is where they fall down. And there is an AI can't do that for you. It can do everything else, but you've got to do it. And that's where I think, as things get cheaper and better, you're starting to see that actually they can be free and outstanding. And it doesn't matter if you're not doing it. So the job there, I think, is for real humans to say, I'll do it. I will do it, and figure out some business model to say, but I'm going to get paid for the value that eventually gets created out of that.
Yeah. So I fully agree that that's where it's going. And actually, I would say that most marketing and most agency owners, right, should be, or professional services in general, right, should be focusing on this, right? And then they use the AI tools to deliver that result to the client, right? So a team of one or two can now provide all these services and do it in a measurable way, and just like you said, right? And to be honest, I think they should do as much of it through software as possible, right? But I guess your take is, if OwnerRx is a great advisor and it tells you what to do, people just won't do it. Is that the core critique?
I think the power is in providing somebody who's actually going to do it, to keep you, to just, if it's just a phone call a week for an hour, and hundreds of previous hours work compacted into that for 3 or 4 decisions that then produce the content, produce the 3 or 4 things that you have to do, so that the business owner can say thank you very much and then do it.
Yeah, I like that. So I do think, so what, if you were going to say the future, so take this as like the future of business coaching, right? Look at it from that way, small business coaching. If you were going to recommend to somebody, hey, there's EOS out there, they're scaling up, there's all these different things. People are paying, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year for EOS implementers. What would you tell like a business coach to be doing based on your thought here?
Well, I suppose that depends on what the business coach is doing already.
Say you're an EOS
if they're
implementer,
already,
right? So you're helping companies implement EOS.
The thing that interests me most is what new jobs appear when a disruptive technology destroys old ones. So the question that we're all asking, I think, is the wrong one. The panic that everybody's in, that AI is going to destroy all these white collar jobs, most of which are horrible, is probably true, but it's the wrong way to look at it. The right way to look at it is to say, what new problems and opportunities will the implementation of this technology throw up that would allow me, as a white collar, a knowledge worker, in Peter Drucker's words, allow me to do my job much better. And I think if I were a business coach and I wanted to scale my business, I would be looking to create this new job of an implementer, to say, we've got all these tools, all the work that we were previously having to put in to create PowerPoint presentations and research and all the stuff that AI now does, if it's properly prompted to do for us. Businesses still need human beings to help them actually do the shit, not just come up with pages of perplexity research and say, oh, look, now I'm fully enabled, but I still don't have time to do it. So I think with the disintermediation of the firms, there is a much higher increased role for specialists to actually come in and do stuff in the business, and to take the burden of that off, and to be paid differently. There's a different business model behind it. And if I was a good, I don't know, agency worker, I was in a small agency with 10 people, and I'm good at marketing and I love it. Now I don't need the agency. I can go out, and if I've got 5 or 6 clients with whom I can be their fractional CFO or CMO, and I'm paying me peppercorn for my time, but I'm managing the funnel. I'm using this amazing technology because that's what I'm trained in, and I love my work. I'm now coming in as a professional, and I'll say, I'll do it. I will do it. I'll do it for you. I'll create the content. I'll build the funnel. I'll put the LinkedIn ads or the Facebook ads in. I'll measure the returns. I'll do my HubSpot integrations. I'll do it. And using the tools, I don't think the tools are for the small business because they just won't do it. But there is an atomization of the agencies is creating enormous opportunities for real people with a passion around the skill set, or whether it's a CFO or anything, They're now suddenly hyper enabled. They don't need any capital. They don't need the firm. They can do their own marketing, and all they need is 5-6 clients. And you've got you're probably earning more than you were as a low-paid grunt as an agency.
I think that's the future, right? So 100%. By the way, peppercorn, does that little? If I get paid peppercorn? Okay, that's a lot. I figured that was, but for our American listeners, they don't.
No, peppercorn is probably an 18th century English expression, so most people would not.
Okay,
it's just a nice expression.
These are the things you pick up around Steve. Yes, Sir Steven. So my theory is that AI is an enabler. It removes barriers. So I had something that I wrote today where like you could think of programmers, developers today as a priest caste. It's like only they know how to talk to the machine, to the God, right? So now we're getting rid of the priest caste. I mean, not 100%. We're on the way there, and it'll take a while. I don't think we're there, but like there won't be fewer programmers. There are going to be tons more. We'll all be programmers. It's just a way to talk to a computer, right? That's all programming is. Get it to do things. So that's where we're going. And what the implication of that is that basically anyone can now use all those tools to support serving a smaller client base, more niche down. They don't need as many people. They can make. So I think we're going to have a ton of agencies. So just be people that do that, who are all programmers building all the tools they need to do their work. So I totally agree with that. So here's the question I have. So, and I'm doing this live, so Steve could blow up my whole business here. So just be aware. But what I fundamentally do with clients, I think, in the end, is tell them what to focus on. They have so many things coming at them, and it's so obvious to me where they need to go. And I think half the time, I'm just there for decisional support. Like looking at what they're doing, saying, okay, this is what you said you wanted. Look at where you are. This is what you're going to have to do to get there. Here are the trade-offs. And I can say it from a business owner standpoint, right? I've been there. I've been through this. So, and I just don't think an AI is, in some ways an AI will never have that emotional content to some extent. But how do I take that and use AI to spread because there's certain things that come out of that, right? That an AI can tell somebody. But I agree, at some point, there has to be like a human to human interaction. So how does a business coach like me to follow that same pattern, right?
Okay. So if I were you and I was looking to scale my business and to turn myself from a money for hours business model to a scalable one, I would be certifying individuals and enabling them to use your proprietary information with all of its proprietary database and focus on building that and charging and effectively creating a certified, what's the new tool called? AX?
Owner RX.
What's your Owner RX?
Like
so I would be
yeah.
creating an Owner RX coach certification where you know that you're training people to do what you do using your tools and leveraging all of those decades of knowledge and experience on the back of the tool that you've now spent the last, 6 or 8 months packing with knowledge, which is highly proprietary, and creating a program for them to build a business around. I think the most socially useful thing and the most profitable thing you can do at the same time is enable other people to create new jobs for themselves on the back of the new technology. I think that's where it becomes exponential. And rather than you limiting yourself to to the number of clients that you can manage, because it's, your day is only as long as it is. I think it's as long as mine, and I need a lot of sleep.
It's probably shorter. I sleep a lot, Steve, so I'm with it.
Yeah.
And I got to drink, and I got to do some other stuff, right? So,
Right. So I would be enabling, I'd be looking and saying, who needs this most? And who has got the most drive to be highly focused on a particular regional, local, industry-specific group and become the enabled executor within, so adding to that Peloton, but and offering different business models. I've thought through, all small businesses have a massive liquidity preference. That means they are loath to pay for something the outcome of which, or the ROI of which, is impossible to know until it's too late. And because there's such a liquidity preference for small businesses, they tend to be extremely cautious about employing fractional thises or a coach, or because they just don't know, is it going to be worth it or not? And I won't know until it's too late. So allowing somebody to say to a business, okay, we're going to do a results-based payment or a different type of business model, where I'll do the first 3 months and you'll see what's happening, and then I'll become an integral part of your team on a fractional basis. And then once the first sort of results start coming through from our work, whether it's margin increase, cost reduction, transparency, which leads to better cost of capital or whatever it is, or marketing, better funnel, better throughput on the funnel, content creation, all the things that go towards more business, because at the end of the day, that's all that every small business is interested in, is either expanding their margin and getting more customers, because that's otherwise they're going backwards. So if I, as a coach, can do these things enabled through AI and do them at a much, much higher level of quality than I could beforehand, and without having to be an agency, that's a new job. And if I can deliver a sort of series of different business models all the way through, and one of the things that I've often thought about is financing those people up front. So I will go to a coach, you could go to your coaches and say, I will pay you whatever you need to survive, and we will finance your costs. So I'll buy you at a discount, but we'll sell you to the small business owner, but he won't have to pay for it until it starts until you can't start seeing the value. And you're pre-financing that and turning that into some sort of instrument that then flips into, I don't know, a percentage of the company that is then liquidated after 5 years, where you've got a put option. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can monetize that to bridge the liquidity preference that stops small businesses responsibly taking on the advice and the support that they actually need.
That's interesting. That's really well thought out, Steven. So I would say, I just look at other models, right? So I totally agree with that. You look at EOS, that's what it is, right? But there are self-implementers. It's shaky how well they do it, but so basically what they did is they created a community around this idea of EOS. There's a bunch of people doing it on their own, and then they build in this coach network for the people who really have agency. And in your mind, in your words, that's like the fraction of the total, right? The Pareto principle of the top 10.
I think the psychological hook that leads to the consistency is that you can't implement EOS on your own. You can't, as the business owner, say, I'm just going to do this myself, and then after 3 weeks get bored. Yeah. Well, you need your, what does it call, your L10?
Yeah, right. You need your team around you. Yeah,
your leadership team. And because EOS forces that discipline on the whole team. So once you start EOS, you really have to keep going unless you want to lose massive face. If we can't even get our shit together to do EOS, well then that's the stickiness of EOS, is that there is a huge embarrassment associated and a palpable sense of failure associated with giving it up. Now, if you've got a good coach and there's no reason to fire him because he's useless, then all the onus on doing it is with the company itself. So once they've decided to do it, they really do have to stick to it until, and if they really are awful, then they'll give it up at some stage through exhaustion. But if they're reasonably competent, then the stickiness comes from the psychological pressure of not wanting to give it up, which is totally different from the managing director or the CEO of the LLC with 10 employees having his business coach, because you can fire him at any stage or say, I can't, I've got too much business, I've got to fly to Japan, I've got to do whatever it is. Then there's much less stickiness.
Yeah. So what I was thinking when you were talking is like, well, that's who I go partner with, right? It's like, maybe I go to the EOS coaches and say, this tool works. You meet with them once a quarter, right? So
I definitely wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do that?
I would not do that. No,
Why is
because
that?
EOS is already an institutionalized model.
Yeah.
And as a newcomer, you'll just get squashed. So your tool is good enough, and your thinking
people
is
who want to be coaches, right? Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have a couple more minutes? Sorry, I know we're close
I do.
to time.
I've got till the hour.
Okay. Quickly, I wanted to hit on the original. So we're supposed to talk. Was we talked a little bit about this like value per hour, and I'd written something about the $10,000 hour versus the 20, and you'd written me back a very elegant note about how there's this sort of idea in small business ownership that you've just got to churn, just keep like hustling, right? And that there wasn't this respect for like taking a breath and like doing more deeper work on meaningful things. So just say a little bit about that. I thought it was really elegantly put the way you did.
Yeah. What your piece spoke to in me was precisely this hyper flywheel that so many people get on in business, where they think that it's the activity itself that is generating the chances. And the more that I churn, the more the sort of random possibility of something successful happens. And I don't think it works like that. And I think if you take an extreme from history, Gandhi, the guy who broke the resistance of the whole of the British Empire, only had 3 campaigns in his 40-year life as an activist, just 3. And he thought deeply about where he was going to concentrate his energies for the maximum cybernetic effect. And if strategy is defined as the concentration of scarce resources on the one point that is likely to produce the best predetermined outcome. In other words, I've got to know what I want, then I've got to know what resources I have, and then I have to think deeply about how I'm going to combine those resources and put them with maximum force on one point so that I'm getting an exponential leverage effect on the use of my resources. Most businesses I find, and this is true of large businesses as well as small businesses, don't do that. They are terrified of focus, and they are terrified of space, for thinking space, because somehow in this weird machine-like fascination that we have for work, we think we have to be like machines. I've owned enough factories to know that throughput is everything, but even the best machines need time down, and they need to cool down, and they need to be repaired and oiled, and you need to take them offline for a day, do some work on them, and then you can run them again. But at the heart of it, you're looking for throughput, maximum throughput and efficiency. But we're not like that. We wish so much of our productivity thinking is around the fact that we wish we were machines. We wish that we drank enough keto and special bullet coffee and got up at 4:30 and meditated for an hour and did all these, ate avocados for breakfast and went to bed with an ice bath, then we would be at this peak performance and we could do all these amazing things. But it's nonsense. I mean, it's just rubbish. And I believe that you start earning 10 and 100 and possibly 1 million an hour if you spend much, much more time thinking deeply about what resources you have, what the intentional outcome is going to be, and how to marshal those resources at the most cybernetically advantageous point, rather than just doing everything as fast as possible and giving yourself no time for reflection. Because quite honestly, you're being paid for reflection. You're not being paid for running around like a blue-ass fly.
Wow. That was some wise words. I would write those down to anybody listening and remember that. Just define cybernetically for us.
Well, cybernetics is the art of directional steerage. So cybernetics is sort of a mixture of it's of getting what you have to do to steer something to get to one place in the most efficient way. It comes from the Latin word gubernator, which means the steerer. And cybernetics is the art of creating the path of least resistance. And in a dynamic organization, it tends to lead to chain reactions. So if you hit the right point, so if you spend a long time listening to your customers, you understand their problem because you've thought deeply about it. You say, how can I solve that particular problem? The cybernetic effect is you solve the problem, the client immediately recognizes it because it's a serious high-level problem that you're engaging with. That leads to immediate demand. That demand leads to a not only positive psychological effect on your side, but it also allows you to be paid in margin, in learning, and in reputation. And as you drive that flywheel, you get deeper and deeper into the economic model, which is a virtuous cycle. As you do more, your reputation increases. As you do more, you learn more. As you learn more, you become more efficient. As you become more efficient, your margins increase. As your margins increase, you have better access to finance and to suppliers and to other people who recognize that you've suddenly hit on something that is creating value and want to be in your ecosystem. So what you're looking for is this cybernetic reaction, which is a chain reaction within your market, as it happens in all biodynamic environments, where you are providing a deep service, and through the service you're getting those sort of energy feedbacks, knowledge, margin, and reputation, which is sort of self-reinforcing.
Wow. I mean, those are
and you can only do that if you take time to think. You can't do that if you're doing everything for everybody, because you miss the important data coming back from your activities.
So I'm going to say Sir Steven is the only man of letters in small business world. So let's you're a deep philosopher in this, and I think huge wisdom there. So I, for one, appreciate it. I learned a lot today. So Sir Steven, thank you. And gosh, we're going to have you back soon. So that was awesome.
I look forward to it. And I look forward to talking to you about the development of your tool. I think it's fascinating.
You've been listening to the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Alan Pentz. For more insights on mastering the new game, follow @apentz, that's APENTZ on X, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, in today's world, you don't follow the rules, you write them.